Good afternoon, and welcome to the Embedded Executive Podcast. My name is Rich Ness. I am with Embedded Computing Design. This week, we reached a little higher into the stars, and we have a special guest, Sandra Rivera, who is the chairwoman of the board for VSORA. How you doing, Sandra?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thank you for that gracious introduction.
My pleasure. Well, I hate to say it, the last time we spoke, you were at a different company in a little bit of a different position. What you been doing for the last year or so?
Well, a lot has happened in the past year. I think the last time we spoke, I was at Embedded World in Germany, and I was delivering the opening keynote to the event, and it was fabulous. The event was fabulous, and since then, I successfully sold the company on behalf of Intel to Silver Lake as the controlling interest partner. I left in the summer after the new CEO came in, and I handed the reins over. Retired from Intel, and I've been doing a lot of board and advisory work, which is what led me to VSORA. And now I joined as the chair of the board in December, and I'm super excited about it.
So when I heard what happened over there, I have to say I was shocked. Was it a surprise to people within Altera what the heck happened there?
Well, I'll say that we had a plan that we had laid out with the then CEO of Intel and the board, that we were going to sell a minority stake in Altera, and that we were going to put together 8 quarters of sequential growth and then get the company set up for an eventual IPO. And that's what I went over to do. And the team was executing extremely well. We were having a lot of fun. We went on our roadshow to sell what had been planned as a minority stake in the company. But after Pat left Intel, Pat Gelsinger, the then CEO of Intel, and then the new CEO and the new leadership team came in, they actually didn't want to hold on to the majority stake of the business, and so we ended up selling it to Silver Lake. They have the controlling interest in the company. And they have a playbook. They normally bring in a new leadership team, a new CEO, and so that was part of the proposal and part of the deal. And so it was I suppose a surprise, because that's not what we all intended to do. But it wasn't a surprise that we had this idea to sell an investment in the business, a stake in the business, and that the company would continue to some successful exit. And in this case, the acquisition by Silver Lake and whatever they're planning now. Obviously, that's a new leadership team that will drive that forward. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you're too gracious to say it, but their loss becomes the gain of VSORA. So before we get into VSORA, because I have to admit I was not that familiar with the company before you joined, and I dove in and did a little research at that point. How did you get to VSORA, and were there stops along the way, or what were you doing in the meantime?
It's interesting because it's always who calls you or who reaches out and what calls you return and what becomes interesting. And I had also not heard of VSORA, despite being in the AI business myself.
So did it come up as a spam call when they called you?
It came up as a call from the search firm that they were working with, whom I know quite well. And so they asked me if I was interested in talking with this company that was based in Europe building AI inference chips. And I'm like, there's a company in Europe building AI inference chips? And so I said, sure, yes, I'll talk with them. And when I met Khalid, who is the CEO of VSORA, I would say that it was just instant chemistry, and we had so much to talk about. And what started out as supposedly a 30-minute call, I think we talked for almost an hour and a half that first conversation, because I had been where he's been, building the types of chips that he's building, solving the kinds of problems that he's solving. And I was just so impressed by how small and nimble and agile and capable this team was and is, that one thing led to another, and what had originally been a call about joining their board became a request or an offer to join as the chair of their board, which I accept. Yeah.
So without being too promotional, what is it that these guys do?
So VSORA is in the AI inference chip business. So they are really very focused on all of the unique requirements that you have for inference as opposed to training, which is very much about low latency, high bandwidth, determinism in terms of the workloads that you're running, and very sensitive to cost per token. And as we know, GPUs and CPUs, because CPUs are part of the AI workload as well as typically the head node, but GPUs and CPUs and general purpose processing technologies do the job of training very, very well and are quite successful in terms of addressing that part of the workflow. But when it comes to actual deployment, and certainly deployments within data centers and enterprises at scale, you do get into many more issues around power constraints, cost constraints, area constraints, as well as the need to have much lower latency, much more real-time inference performance, and to have that be done at a deterministic level for the types of devices and the types of use cases and applications that you're running. So this is what they're focused on, and they have a unique architecture. They have a unique approach to embedded memory and trying to really address a lot of the issues that exist between the compute and the memory access and the memory bandwidth. And so they have a lot of innovation and a lot of grit, and really a driven team that is focused on doing one thing and one thing only, which is low latency, high performance AI inference.
How many people is this company? How large a group are we talking about?
We're talking just a few dozen people. And
Okay.
so the fact that they have designed and taped out such a complex logic device on latest process technology, latest packaging technology. They're manufacturing at TSMC, so of course they're fabless. They have great support from TSMC, who've been really strong partners that have also invested in them in terms of their own resources and their know-how. Means that TSMC is also seeing something really special in VSORA in the way that they're leading in terms of new disruptive innovation in the market. And again, you don't see that many companies based outside of the US, but certainly in Europe, that are doing these types of complex chip designs. And we've successfully taped out, and we're just waiting for our chip to come back in May so that we can start deploying.
Where specifically in Europe are they located?
They're based in Paris, France. So a lovely place to be headquartered. The team has been together, as I mentioned, Rich, a number of years. They had a previous company, or this CEO, Khalid, had a previous company. They had a successful exit from that company. They reformed in this company, really focused on the automotive industry and a lot of the autonomous vehicle types of use cases. And then after everything that happened with ChatGPT and the AI focus and resurgence that happened as a result of that, they decided that they had a lot of unique technology and capability that was very applicable to addressing the AI inference problem. So they decided in 2018 to pivot, and in 2022 they started designing this latest chip that they're deploying that, or that they taped out and will be coming back now, and we're looking forward to deployments later this year.
And what does Sandra Rivera bring to this party?
Well, having scaled a number of businesses, and Rich, that before Altera, I spent a lot of years at Intel. Most of my time there was spent building and growing the networking business, and we started that as tens of millions of dollars of revenue. And when I left as the leader of that organization, when I made a pivot at Intel, I was very proud that the team had achieved almost $5 billion in revenue. So I certainly know how to build and scale businesses. And I have great relationships for many years, not just in the networking business, but then later on in the data center and AI business. And I think that I can certainly help Khalid and his team and VSORA navigate all the decisions that they'll come to in terms of how they can accelerate their innovation, how they can leverage the resource pool that they have to focus their efforts on the right markets and the right customers, and certainly how to build and scale a sustainable business for the long term.
Many companies that go this route, I'll even say most companies that go this route, have a goal of reaching a certain point and then being acquired. Is that the plan here?
One of the things, it's an excellent question, because one of the things that appealed to me so much about working with Khalid and VSORA is the fact that they're looking to build a company for the long term. Now, does that mean that they will do a public offering at some point? Does that mean that they're open to acquisition? I think a successful exit looks a lot of different ways, but the commitment to build and grow an organization, to continue to invest in IP, and to continue to invest in the team and, frankly, the culture, so that you are building a long-term, sustainable, differentiated value proposition for your customers, that really appeals to me, regardless of whatever that successful exit looks like in the long term.
Okay. You said that they're waiting for the chip to come out in May. What's next? May is right around the corner. What do the next 12 months hold for VSORA?
Yeah, so we have a lot of ambitious plans this year. We're looking forward to publishing the results of the actual silicon performance. We've done a lot of simulation work. We've done a lot of synthetic analyses and benchmarks and performance measurements that show we should have a really good showing this year at MLPerf, because we're going to contribute our results there. But once we get the silicon back, it'll be great to put it in a system and a platform, run real live workloads, and then submit those results. So that's going to be a big milestone for us. And then in the second half of this year, we're actually looking to deploy in a number of locations in Europe. We already have sites and customers lined up for that. We're building our boards now. We're building an OEM module. We're building the server, the rack, the system. So all of that just to demonstrate that this is very much deployable. It's not just a chip, because as you probably know by now, that most companies want a higher level of integration in order to consume and deploy your product. So we're building on, obviously starting with the chip, but on the system, the platform, the software, the integration efforts, and up to the actual rack level, so that we can demonstrate at some level of scale the performance of our chips all working together.
And the goal is to be a chip vendor, not to be an IP vendor, right?
That very much is the goal, is that we're going to sell the silicon, how we actually deploy that, and perhaps it's on OEM modules or PCIe boards, or again in a server or a rack, which we would do that with partners in our ecosystem. We're building out an ecosystem, so we wouldn't necessarily do that by ourselves, but we are just trying to make the technology more consumable and more easily deployable by taking care of a lot of those integration efforts that are difficult and challenging, but not necessarily value add for our customers. So we're trying to get them to the time to value a lot quicker by doing a lot of that foundational work for them.
I am very much looking forward to see how this plays out, because I know your history. So I think that there's a good chance this is going to work out.
I think so. As I said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, because I think they're the right company with the right product at the right time. There's a lot of demand for inference. As you know, inference is the fastest growing part of the AI workload. From a training and foundational model perspective, that's probably going to remain the domain of a handful of customers or companies. But when you look at all of the use cases for AI inference in the data center, and even all the way out to the edge and physical AI, I think this is the most exciting and most wide open part of the AI workflow, and we plan to be a major player in that.
Well, thank you very much for spending a few minutes with me, Sandra. This is cool stuff. Thank
you, Rich. It's always great to see you. I appreciate you having me on.
That was Sandra Rivera. She's the chairwoman of the board of VSORA, and I'm Rich Nass with Embedded Computing Design.